Thank you, Professor Farida, my colleague Dr. Shrotri, Professor V.P. Singh, Professor Yamraj, and Professor Sharma, other friends. Let me first thank the university for having invited me to speak in this August seminar. And I attended only one session, but I learned so much. And as Professor Farida says, that ventilate my views. There are so many things to speak on, and I have to restrain, isn't it, to the subject which I have chosen, which is slightly different than the one which I have sent and which has been printed. So it's a little different, but keeping to the topic which has been assigned to the session. So when last I saw the session, nomenclature of the session, I slightly have changed it and thought, what are the fundamental problems of this funding higher education, and wherever I find very, very relevant to reflect on the colleagues who have already spoken, I will only then reflect on. Otherwise, I will try to avoid. Now, education as a good, that is very, very important. Education as a good is very complicated nature. This complication sets a lot of problems in the analysis and therefore in the discussion and the debate which we keep doing on education when funding or financing part comes. Higher education is still more ticklish. And pure research part is definitely pure public good. So here you have primary education, very highly valued merit good, and on the other hand you have pure research which is pure public good, because there is no rivalness in the use of public pure research, and there is no excludability, non-excludability in the use, and therefore, and it is global, rather universal. The pure public pure research is universal, therefore it is pure public good. Now, primary and elementary education we consider of a very high level of merit for two reasons. One, it is a good for the individual consumer, not in the view of the consumer, but in the view of the parents, in the view of the society, in view of the state. And they think, and there is some paternalistic, state has some paternality or paternalistic attitude, whereas individuals are supposed to be parental in view. But nevertheless, at the time of consumption, if a boy, a girl doesn't want to be educated, we almost force, we cajole, we coax, we make him understand that it is good for you. It will pay you in life. And therefore, it is not good in the usual sense in which in economics that I demand, I want. I may not be wanting. And therefore, we have to see that there is a perspective of the society, perspective of the state, isn't it, that it is good for you. In that sense, some people have defined. Unfortunately, Government of India did not take that view. They thought good for society in view of the positive externalities. If it is generating positive externalities, only then it is a merit good. So in the literature, both views are coming. I give precedence to the first view. Most people give, or some of the people, and particularly those who wanted to side it with the government, they gave the preference for the second. And they have positive externalities as well. It's not that I get educated and I don't help the society in many, by my mores, by my values and so on. So further, it is a capital good, as Professor Singh was suggesting, that it has long-term stream coming out of that capital. It's not one-time consumption of sugar. So it produces the other benefits and doesn't get consumed away by other consumers. But some people might think of durable consumer good. Nevertheless, that does not make much difference. So now, secondary and higher education is a bundle of goods. And I am saying secondary and higher education because in the 1997 document of the Government of India on subsidies in India, government subsidies in India, what they did, elementary education is merit good and only education, they wrote only education in the non-merit good. So I exclude elementary education and put the other education. We have so many general, vocational, professional, industrial research, patentable, copyrightable, pure research, and some people also talk of recreational. So all generate private returns, all generate social returns in different proportions. Not that none of them generate any private returns, none of them generate any social returns. They differ from level to level and stream to stream. So time is not there. I mean that I make a matrix, isn't it, which is more and which is less. Different levels and streams consume different level of societal resources also. As Professor Rai was suggesting, for sociology, perhaps you can do a lot sitting alone or with some resources, internet and all that. May not require moving to a laboratory. Somewhere you need to move to a laboratory, so more resources may be needed in certain kind of what you call education on higher level. Now, what is the general principle of financing? Private individuals, you put parents in their place, or maybe in America they may not like to put the parents at some high level, and governments, the other social forums also. Unfortunately, in economics for pretty long time we think market and the state. We don't think that there exist other forums as well. Whereas in society we know full well there are so many panchayats, chopals and various ad hoc forums we create and we resolve the problems. We unfortunately, and particularly economics literature that believe that there are only two institutions, either you have market or you have government. So they contribute in different proportions to private and social returns in each stream. Some might love to spoke marginal principle, because we are all lovers, neoclassicals are lovers of marginal principle. So we might think of some curve here and some curve there and what kind of division. The first principle is on average kind. So I am preferring here average kind, but if you go for marginal, division you can find out, level you cannot know. So that is the issue. And this provision may not be the level required by society. Because as a society you think we should be 20%, we should be 30% by 22, maybe 32% at moment around 20%. So who is deciding this? Are you deciding on the basis of returns, or is there any calculation by you to say by such and such time we should reach that level? Which means we are not thinking in terms of returns. We are, in calculation of research, private and so on, we are thinking in terms of our societal returns by and large, isn't it? The requirement, the interlinkages, as the reference was made, you have to have back integration. Whether you don't have students in secondary education and you say you want 32% of such and such age to be in the higher education, how can you have it? So you have to see in the whole sequence. But anyway, this principle may take care of efficient provision but not equitous provision. Now this equitous provision, our society, we talk of harmonious society, we want to talk of an inclusive society and so on. But Constitution also says mandated equality of opportunity. Now how do you have equality of opportunity? If you do not prepare me adequately, how do you provide me that probability that I can equally compete with you? Isn't it just chance that you get or I get? So if that is not assured, so that issue by this general principle is not adequately served. And unfortunately we started taking this principle for financing. Now this merit, quality and subsidization. Now merit of a good ought to be disentangled from subsidization by government. Well-to-do parents may be paying for elementary education. Does it mean because government is not subsidizing and therefore primary education is not merit good? If you are able to send your children to say Doon school, will you say government is not subsidizing, therefore this portion of education is not merit good? So I think whole argument, the way it was put, there is something wrong with it. Government subsidizes promotion of public library, art galleries, vaccination, inoculation, immunization. They are all merit goods, but egg, milk and all discouraging certain demerit goods, that is also in that same category. on the other side, encouraging merit good, discouraging demerit good. So this is very, very important. We are often going for social advertisement, but there are many other ways, coaxing, cajoling, isn't it? There are not only subsidization, so it should be disentangled. Merit, demerit good is not the same as public bad. I think I will not take more time on it. It may be pure research. So meritness of a good ought to be disentangled from the subsidization by the government, which the government tried to mix the two. I think I have 7 more minutes. So shifting government stand. Following commitment by P. Chidambaram in budget speech 1996-97 with H.D. Devagowda as PM, a study was carried out by NIPFB by D.K. Srivastava, my senior, and Tapas Sen to quantify visible and hidden subsidies so as to have the informed debate. Among many social and economic services, non-elementary education, and because department was sports, arts and culture, so the whole departmental expenditure, the methodology they adopted, the whole expenditure in the department and whole revenue which got generated, and the difference was taken as the subsidy. So was identified as non-merit good or service, whereas elementary education was accepted as a merit good or service. Important part on the merit good part, the recovery was 1%, and the recovery on non-merit part was 11%. When you go to specifics of elementary education, it was 0.8%, and for when we go for non-elementary education, that means higher education, it was 2.5%. It was considered woefully low, and therefore they thought, but it is much lower in the case of elementary education. If only subsidization is the issue, perhaps you could also call it, but it was not called for various reasons. Now in 1998, a symposium was organized by the Association of Indian Universities and University News, and many of us were invited. So this is the kind of a symposium. I was also one contributor to it. Many scholars participated in it. A lot of debate took place. An attitude of the government was criticized for ignoring the sector of higher education. Some scholars argued, as myself and my senior colleague Professor Kabra, disentanglement of the issue of judging the merit with capacity or willingness to subsidization. Whether sometimes you may not be having capacity, government may not have, sometimes they may not be willing. Because in the 9th and 10th plan you say that it is all non-merit good. 11th plan suddenly you find resources are plenty, and 12th plan you say yes, we will have RUSA and we will spend a lot. So that fiscal and that post-recession, global recession, that means that the resources are not such a great constraint. It is only your prioritization. And suddenly you realize that your prioritization is changing, and then you are willing to change the what we call a category of that particular sector. And now higher education was said to be merit 2 good, whereas elementary education was recognized as merit 1 good. So it was shifted from non-merit to merit 2 category. Government and market. Government has withdrawn quite a bit by not opening very many new higher education, except certain IITs or certain IIMs, not appointing teachers, other personnel. Private university bills have been passed in all states, and private individual financing. Now I have put private quote unquote, because word private is very dangerous. We do not know which private we are talking, whether we are talking of the individual, we are talking of the corporate, we are talking of the non-government, other philanthropy or something. We are not very sure. Philanthropy is on decline, cannot meet the level of desired by the economy. CSR seems to be harbinger, but one is not sure of its scale. And some people say that you are already doing something and which you are now trying to change, isn't it? Shifting that under CSR. Certain streams like, I think Professor V.P. Singh suggested on civilizing role of education. So certain streams like philosophy, literature, mathematics to suffer, and thus long-term interest to suffer, long-term interest of the society to suffer, because you do not have immediate job in the market with these streams. Public partnership in higher education. All models proposed by Planning Commission or UGC are outsourcing models. Professor VP Singh has given all 4 models, so I am not repeating. A little more sophisticated than construction or AMC. They are either on construction side, you construct and you get unionized payment, or they are, annual management contract or something like AMC, maintenance contract. Partnership essentially involves sharing of resources, risk and revenue, which is absent in these proposals. Department of Economic Affairs does not list education in its list of sectors of PPP. But viability gap funding, when somebody suggested, so they also put education. But generally in their ethos it doesn't come. And a few PPP with Government of India, state governments and government companies, they called PPP. I don't know which is PPP. So, but it does not seem to be voluntary, because you suggested Coal India, that you participate. So 1/7 participation, lot of land given by the state government, and it doesn't come anywhere in the real terms of PPP. Though perhaps one would have preferred, as one of the participants, better in place of public, say government, isn't it, and place of private, say public, in the usual commerce nomenclature. Now this is your private participation. Meaning of private is very, very important. Outsourcing to private, yes. All periphery activities are commercial and privatize them, as Professor Ray was giving some example of other countries. No issues. We have been doing it. Participation in the sector, yes. There is IIS. Nobody says no. Participation in the governance, yes. If you have governance board, have them also. They have say, and let them tell what the economy is wanting. Sponsoring long-term research projects, yes. There is no. If Tata is willing to sponsor certain projects and they are doing, invite. PPP, very low chance as the sector as yet non-profit, non-commercial. We cannot, if education sector is non-profit, non-commercial, we cannot have real PPP because risk is not involved. So training, coaching, last mile finishing, bridging the gap between education and industry may all be conducted by private parties as they are already doing. Should education be an industry in the sense of the film industry? 20 years ago when people started using word, young boys, when I chose education industry, we felt offended. Today we don't feel offended, but industry in the same sense, or industry in, classification of the industries, of course education is one. So, but not industry in the, in our head, private generally means corporate. Industry generally means profit orientation. So not in that sense. Now I just quote Marshall, 125 years ago. Marshall had written just in Principles of Economics. We thought that he is doing some physics and economics, writing some formulae, curves and all that. But he was doing a lot of sociology. And just on higher education, just 2 slides more and then I am done. The wisdom of expanding, EXPE, expanding public and private funds, is not distinguishing on education is not to be measured by its direct fruits alone. Returns, this Sakharopoulos kind of calculations, and where people find it is very faulty. Even J.V.J. Tilak, who is his student, he finds Sakharopoulos calculation of rate of return is a little dicey, not so good. So anyway, I don't know, but I can just try because I find it very, very important. Let me read from here. The wisdom of expanding public and private funds on education and not to be measured by its direct fruits alone. It will be profitable as a mere investment to give the masses of the people, masses of 1890, masses of the people much greater opportunity than they can generally avail themselves of. That means my own private funding will not be able to. For And self-financing means my. Isn't it? Self-financing does not mean yours. Self-financing means my. So, for by this means, many who would have died unknown as are enabled to get the start needed for bringing out their latent abilities, and the economic value of a great industrial genius is sufficient to cover the expenses of the education of a whole town. For one new idea, such as Bessemer's, I think those who know some, there are quite a few scientists, Bessemer, that metallurgical processes. One such as Bessemer's chief invention adds as much to the England's productive power as the labor of 100,000 men, 1 lakh men. Less direct but not less in importance is the aid given to production by medical discoveries such as those by Jenner or Pasteur, which increase our health and working power, and again by scientific work such as that of mathematics or biology, even though many generations may pass away before it bears visible fruit. In greater material well-being, all this is spent during many years in opening the means of higher education to the masses will be paid for if it called out one more Newton, Darwin, Shakespeare or Beethoven. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Chaubeji, for your nice presentation on the funding of this higher education. BP Singh has, in the morning session, he has rightly pointed out. Let me give one example. I was interacting with one of the faculty who brought me from the guest house to here. I said, how much the fee you are collecting from the student? He said, we are getting 4,000-5,000 and Rajasthan University is collecting 5,000 for BCom. I said, do you know how much we are collecting? He said, kitna hai? We expect. Now wait, 2-3,000. We are collecting 8 rupees from boys and 0 rupees from girls. In postgraduate, it is 10 rupees for boys and 0 rupees for girls. This is the system. It's a government system. And subsidizing the higher education, impossible, impracticable on the part of any of the government. I have gone through a report, higher education policy of International Association of University, where they have talked of Norway, they have talked of German, they have talked of finance. They said, no, why to just subsidize the higher education? Is it a need? First question is, whether this higher education is need for each and everybody. We should expand it as a kirana shop. No, it is not. But those who need it, those who really need it and who in the country require them, let them be provided with them. Otherwise it should not be. And see, if we expect that subsidized education for 1.25 million of people, it is no government, the entire exchequer, government is spending 3.5 to 3.8%, and we are demanding 6%, and government is unable to do that, and you are expecting to 100% subsidization, and the entire budget outlay will be for education. Impossible and impracticable. Don't expect. Next, my sincere request to I don't know. No, question is not that. He is from Department of Commerce and Delhi School of Economics, and as an academy he is here. I know him personally, and my sincere request is a well known, so I think he will stick to that. Thank you.
Speakers, members in the audience, Professor Ian Rai, my earlier boss, Professor BP Singh, again another boss. I can call him my boss or mentor or whatever way I can say.
Mentor is still better.
You know, Professor Mathur, Dr. Subhash Garg ji, Dr. Sharma ji, Akhil ji. I am sitting in a family, and really thank you Subhash ji having called me here. And when Professor Chaube was speaking, I was just thinking, and Professor Farida was sitting next to me, that how will I cut short my whatever I thought I would be sharing. And he used one term, just now, Professor Farida used one term called Kirana shop. So I will start from there, and I think all of you know Hindi.
Yes, yes.
सब लोगों को पता है ना हिंदी आती है? I will start from there and give you a few pointers and leave. Okay? It goes like this. नाई की दुकान पर बिक रहा था सामान, माध्यम था रेडियो, एक निजी प्रबंध संस्थान के लुभावने व भ्रामक विज्ञापन द्वारा बहुराष्ट्रीय कंपनियों में 6 अंकीय आय का उदाहरण, प्रलोभन व आश्वासन। व्यापार की शिक्षा या शिक्षा का व्यापार, व्यापार की शिक्षा या शिक्षा का व्यापार। एक प्रश्न, कैसा होगा शिक्षा का स्वरूप यदि शिक्षा होगी व्यापार? निवेश पर अधिक प्रत्याय, रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट वी कीप टॉकिंग अबाउट। निवेश पर अधिक प्रत्याय और अधिक प्रत्याय, लाभ और अधिक लाभ। इन संस्थानों में शिक्षित होते छात्र छात्राएं, उनकी जगह, उनकी जो सीट होती है, उनकी जगह कहलाती है माल, सामान या स्कंद। कॉमर्स में हम लोग उसको स्टॉक कहते हैं। और व्यापारी बेचते हैं सामान। बाजार की भाषा में बिकने वाला सभी कुछ होता है सामान या माल। बाजार में दर्जी की दुकान में, मोची की दुकान में, परचून की दुकान में या फिर विशालकाय माल में, चलते फिरते बस में, कार में, ट्रक में, ट्रेन में, सब जगह बाजार में, नाई की दुकान में बिक रहा है सामान। यहाँ सरस्वती की पूजा नहीं होती, यहाँ पूजे जाते हैं लक्ष्मी व गणेश। कई संस्थानों का माल नहीं बिक रहा है, उनके बड़े बड़े गोदामों में सड़ रहा है स्कंद। आजकल अर्थशास्त्रीय सिद्धांतों का पालन करते बाजार, मांग पूर्ति का सिद्धांत, सीमांत उपयोगिता का सिद्धांत, प्रतिस्पर्धात्मक मूल्यों का नियम, बाजारू मूल्य, मूल्यों का बाजार व प्रतिस्पर्धा। मुझे ज्ञात है जिस प्रकार हलवाई की दुकान से बिल्डिंगों के व्यापार तक, तंबाकू की खेती से बीड़ियों व पान मसाले के व्यापार तक व्यापारी करते हैं निवेश स्वयं या साझे में, उसी प्रकार उतर आए हैं शिक्षा के व्यापार में। उनको बेचना है सामान, कैसे भी, किसी को भी, येन केन प्रकारेण, छूट पर एक के साथ एक मुफ्त, 25, 30, 40 या 50% अधिक उसी कीमत पर पटोरे जाते हैं ग्राहक कस्बे से, गांव से, झूठे प्रलोभनों द्वारा। फिर भी बहुतों के यहाँ माल बेकार पड़ा है, सड़ रहा है। खरीदारों की प्रतीक्षा में मैं सोचता हूँ व्यापारियों की पीड़ा, निवेश पर प्रत्याय की आशा, शायद इसीलिए आज बिक रहा है सामान नाई की दुकान में, बीड़ी पान की दुकान में। सुना है आजकल आयातिक शिक्षा का बाजार गर्म है, एक लोकल डिग्री के साथ विदेशी डिग्री फ्री। एक प्रश्न, क्या कल यहाँ खुल जाएंगे राइस मिलें? सुना है इस बार धान की फसल अच्छी है। क्या कल यहाँ खुल जाएंगे 5, 7, 9 या 11 सितारा होटल? सुना है आने वाले वर्षों में पर्यटन उद्योग का बोलबाला होने वाला है, सरकारी सब्सिडी भी बढ़ने वाली है। क्या यहाँ खुल जाएंगे विशालकाय माल? सुना है फुटकर व्यापार में विदेशी निवेश आने वाला है। क्या यहाँ खुल जाएंगे बड़े बड़े अस्पताल? सुना है कीटनाशकों के कारण कीटनाशकों के निरंतर प्रयोग से उत्पन्न होंगी नई नई बीमारियां, पैदा होंगे नए नए अवसर, और इन सभी अवसरों को परिणत किया जाएगा पूंजी में। फिलहाल नाई की दुकान में बिक रहा है सामान। माई इंटेंशन इज नॉट टू पुट all the private institutions in this line. What I'm trying to say is that if we open up what is happening in the market, many of these shops are getting closed, but people who are committed, they are surviving, and that is the challenge before them. And then the pointers that I want to raise is, I think more than the infrastructure, the problem is of human infrastructure. We used to have teachers, the kind of teachers that we used to have. Where are those teachers? We go to institutions, we see excellent infrastructure, but when we look at teachers, where are good teachers? And that is one of the reasons, one of the challenge before all of us. I think funding is not an issue. Most of the universities get into funding, they spend money in the month of January, February, March, because 31st March is approaching. And that is a big challenge. If what we require is the intent. Intent is more important for higher education. And if we have good intent, I am telling you, big private universities are going to compete with state-run universities and going to really get better human resource. And that is what is happening already. People have started moving to private universities. And that kind of privatization, I think, is a good trend for our country. Another thing which keeps coming to my mind is, when we talk about regulation, of course government is into regulation. Government tries to control things. But more than the regulation, I think the point is of governance. We need to govern better. And if at governance front we are failing, I think that challenge has to be tackled cautiously from the background. Another thing which we have seen, that the way the UGC had made one committee where they were asking about opinion of people, and one of the opinion was, which I think is a very good opinion, that when we talk about infrastructure development and when we talk about investment from the private entrepreneurs and who are really committed to education, if they can develop infrastructure and work with government hand in hand, I think that would go a long way. And we already see the trend of coming into corporate universities, like the one you have in UK or USA. You do have corporate universities coming up these days. How much? 2 more minutes? 2 more minutes? Okay. So I think that would be a greater challenge, and maybe I think we have to move into it. Like Professor Choi was telling about a public-private partnership. When we look at public-private partnership, the basic challenge is that what is the interest of the organization? Whether the organization is giving the money and sitting back and saying that, okay, we don't want any return for at least next 10 years. If we don't get any return on this, there is no problem. And if that kind of investment we can capture, I think it would be better. Yesterday, Professor Devi Singh, I think, must have come here, must have talked about, I know about that university called the Flames University. Okay, I think this is what 10 years back when we were, as a young person, I was sitting and we were talking about with some people. I was telling, you know, in the times to come, what is going to happen? These disciplines like philosophy, literature, sociology, ancient history, they are going to come into the forefront. Because if you take aside humanities from engineering, I think you will just make machines. And when you make machines, you can only be talking about objectivity and the return. And that is, I think, we need to go a long way and develop that kind of culture. Thank you very much for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I think the problem is not of funding. Funding is not a big problem. The problem is of good intention. And if we get good teachers, I think most of our friends are young here, if you take up teaching, be concerned about teaching. And I tell you, you will derive the kind of satisfaction that you would derive is immense. Okay? With this good note, I would like to close my deliberation, and maybe towards the end, if there is some kind of discussion, maybe participate in discussion. Thank you very much to each and every one of you having given me this patience hearing, and my special thanks to Dr. Subhash Garg, an old friend, having given me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Vijayji. You have rightly pointed out about the status of the education as on date. Government has already dismantled the economic system in our country, from private to nationalized to privatized. Education was in the private sector, so far my knowledge go. When I was a student, I used to bring bricks in my head, and my parents bring some thatched houses, and they were managing the schools, and I think we are the best products. Government took over. Now government is saying that there is no fund. Now private people, they have already taken over, and sitting under the roof of these private people, I cannot say. I was just inquiring, how many students we have admitted in MBA? Now 400 to 500. What's your campus? About 80%, 90% people self-placed. Who will go to my university, one of the oldest universities, 7th biggest university, when I cannot spend a cup of tea for the placement agencies? I cannot spend a cup of tea. I cannot provide them a cup of tea. I cannot put them in the hotel. Yes, these are the system. What he talked of about the intention. I talked of it is the mindset. Mindset of the government should be changed. Mindset of the people should be changed. People in LKG and UKG, they are paying 2,000, 3,000 for admission. They are paying lakhs of rupees. And in my university, they are paying 8 rupees. And you will see increase it by 1 rupee. Just 6 months back, we increased the sports fee by 25 rupees. And there are so Salping and Gherao and others, we would rate. This is mindset. This is mindset. So money is not a matter. Question is how you produce the product, then how you market it, that's a matter. And government, these state universities or government universities cannot compete with these people or the private people because they have got everything else. They have got free things to do whatever they like, good for the people or for the society they can do. So that is the need of the hour, and let us expect that. You cannot say.
The government will kill them, but not appointing teachers. We won't allow them to.
Every merit has got its demerit in the back. Every end has got its beginning in the back. So some lacunas, such shortcomings are there in the private, and though no, they are profit oriented, no doubt about it. That is why they have started this institution, and we cannot say no. Chalo. Now, the big question, big task. There are 21 papers, and there is 35 minutes like that. So you can share it. 1 minute or 2 minutes. I want to see their face. They come and see their, show their face and tell the title. No, not possible. And how many of them are present?
Raise your hand. I think they all should be taken as read, and those who want to come should be allowed.
Those who are, my suggestion is, those who are from outside the Jaipur, because many of this from this IIS university, many of them. So let those who have come from outside, let them be given the chance. Can I cross it?
Swati Vaidya.
Swati Vaidya. Aaj. Okay. You are the first speaker. Please come. Please come. Restrict to 5 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Especially your suggestions. Many things have been discussed. Hardly few things are left. What you want, just tell.
Good afternoon, everyone. Respected chief guest and chairperson and other dignitaries on the dais and organizers. Thanks a lot for giving me an opportunity. My paper is about, I have done a content analysis of the syllabus which I have been teaching for a long time. I belong to a college from SNET Women's University, and I teach economics in BCom degree course. So what I have done is, the 3 years BCom degree course has got total 6 semesters, and in these 6 semesters we teach them 6 different papers. So out of these 6 different papers, for each and every topic, I have assigned as per the employability skill. Okay? So first of all, I just want to quickly revise 2 concepts. First is employability. It is about doing value creating work, getting paid for it, and learning at the same time, enhancing the ability to get work in the future. Okay? So this was a definition given first by Sumanta Ghoshal in 1997. Then there is another particular definition which is about employability being a set of achievements. These are skills and understandings and personal attributes that make any graduate more likely to gain employment and be successful in their chosen occupation. Okay, so the next slide. Yeah. The second concept I am looking at is, within employability skills, there are 2 types of skills. Firstly, there are generic skills, and secondly, there are job-specific, vocational-specific skills. What matters to me as a person who's teaching to a BCom course, which is supposedly a non-professional course. Supposedly, I don't want to say it is a non-professional course, and at the same time, it is an aided course. Yeah. So the generic skills are the skills which can be applied across a variety of subject domains, and it takes longer to acquire these skills. It is not easy to acquire the skill like, the engineer is told how to use a particular machine or a tool. while the generic skills are little different and little difficult to deal with. So these are skills which are different ways of one's thought process. Yeah? These are skills also called domain independent knowledge. Okay? The major kind of generic skills will include thinking skills, learning strategies, abilities to monitor and revise our problem solving techniques. So these two concepts are important for my content analysis. Next slide. The objectives were, what I've done in the paper is I've done the content analysis, and then after doing the content analysis I arrived at SWOT of that particular syllabus. All the 6 semesters, what are the strengths, weaknesses and your opportunities offered and the threat, possible problems. And the last one obviously is some suggestions to improve the employability of the given syllabus. Let me tell you one thing, it is employability not directly offered by the syllabus. It is as you teach and the student learns all the topics given in the syllabus, some of the topics do give you an opportunity to arrive to acquire this particular skill. So there are 3 different skills I am looking at, and each of the 3 skills is further divided into 5 more sub skills. So first skill area is the academic improvement, and this particular, this academic improvement is divided into these 5 different types. And if we look at the score of the total number of opportunities which are possibly given by this entire 6 semester course over a period of 3 years of BCom, there are 142 opportunities or different topics which will enable a teacher and a student to have an opportunity that a student acquires any of these 5 skills. Okay? Then, so the 5 abilities are, first is to ability to understand abstraction of reality. Second is the reality is there in present in front of us and we put it in abstract manner. Yeah, the second set is, next slide. The second skill I am looking at is attitudinal and attributive skills. These are again divided into 5, and the total score of attitudinal skills opportunities is 134. Third is the most important, creative thinking skills, and this is where the syllabus scores really badly poorly. Out of total 6 semesters or 3 years, the creative thinking type opportunities are only 69, and that's where the weakness of the syllabus is. While we can clearly see the strength, yeah, the next
Come to your
slide.
conclusion, madam.
Yeah,
Please.
Yeah, just skip the things. You can skip. Just go to the last slide. Conclusion. Yeah, conclusion is the prescribed syllabus is not explicitly oriented towards inculcating employability skill. These are the skills I have analyzed that they may possibly give an opportunity. The syllabus is not oriented towards giving employability skill. That is not an objective. Okay, and probably in aided and typical BCom, BA education in India, most probably employability skills are not incorporated while framing the syllabus as an objective. So that could be something we should be looking at. Next is improvement in the generic skills of employability is possible within the existing syllabus. For that you don't need some horribly new finances, horribly new set of infrastructural developments. The existing syllabus is capable of giving these things. Next slide. Yeah, if you look at the skills which are given by the syllabus over a period of 6 semesters, there's a skewed distribution in favor of academic improvement only. So only that particular part of skills, is more given in favor.
Please.
And so it is necessary to
Next.
offer some standardization.
Please.
Thank you.
Next, Dr. Shilpa Gaur. Please come.
Without wasting time, the present research study is an attempt to discuss how education will look in 2025. Education research points out that there is need to focus in including new ideas and new ways in education system. The year 2025 is not very far, and we still can see some changes in education system. And teachers who have received
Please
training-
directly go to your conclusion, what you want to speak. Please.
Okay, sir.
Time is short.
Education and education system is the next bubble to burst. One more drastic change we will going to notice is that students will no longer bound by the tradition of staying for 8 to 2 or 9 to 5 in school hours. Work from home has been started in present scenario, and we will continue increase in future. My conclusion, in the end, I believe that internet and flexible institutions and updated teachers will be heroes of education system in 2025. Many doors to the people have opened up for higher education, and people are looking for such institutions that will help them grooming as well. But including internet and updated institution, one should not completely rely upon this as a practical or fieldwork is very important. And apart from that, professors should also follow the modern tradition of education and update themselves in every best possible way.
Okay, thank you, madam.
As already put up, I am from Udupi, coastal Karnataka, very near to Manipal. My topic, autonomy to colleges, self-interest of parent university. I don't want to read the slides. One thing is quite clear, it is a rare opportunity on my part to come here because just to see all these experts, it is a pleasurable moment indeed. The most important part of any seminar is the intellectual deliberations that you have done it. It's a rare opportunity on my part to hear the Arun Pujari, even BP Singh, even Farida, one of the best organizer, because I can remember, still cherish the well-organized seminar that he has done in the KIT University. So coming to this topic, most of the aspects have already been discussed. I'm directly going to the conclusion here. We know the drawbacks of the affiliated system, the 40,000 colleges. So, and even this Osmania University, the Bangalore University and Mumbai University, the colleges are more than 800, 900. In order to overcome this problem, the UGC and National Commission for Education, they have put forward this autonomous institution. Here the role of the parent university to encourage, to develop, to bring more and more colleges under the ambit of this institution, university. But what is being happening here? University is not encouraging. University is not encouraging these autonomous colleges. So university sees that it's a threat. University sees that because the professor has already mentioned they are in the ventilation stage. So they think that their money is, they are not going to get that huge amount of money. That is why what they have been doing, they have been increasing this fees like anything. So in order to get this autonomous status, our parent university charges 5,60,000. In order to get this research center, our parent university charges 80,000 rupees. Some of the management like Manipal Academy, where I have been working, 6 colleges. If that research center started here, next year they will transfer. That research center is wiped away. So these are all certain pertinent problems have been created by this parent university. University is not responsible. The rules and regulations are responsible here. Is there any way out here? The intellectuals, they have to think about it. So the only way out, these 45 autonomous colleges, they are going to be granted this degree awarding status. So that is a panacea for some of these evils, but still much have to be done. Lot of changes are required in the statute. Lot of changes are required in the mode of thinking of this university. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Sapna.
My last slide, recommendation, because most have already been discussed. Okay, so in my paper I have shown the public funding, and I have taken the brief historical framework that at the time of Nehruvian model, in which we were moving toward the socialistic pattern. So there was much of the public funded institute in India, and IIT had come that time. So both at the center and the state government need to allocate far more resources and attention in ensuring those future generations are equipped sufficiently to operate in a knowledge economy. So my focus is to create a knowledge-based economy. Just creating the degrees or just allocating the degree will not improve the situation. There's need to enhance the employers' expectation in the education sector to meet the challenges of employability crisis in the youth. And to make higher education in the reach of middle and lower income group, government should encourage university to offer quality program at least cost. And private sector run universities, which should not be on the profit basis, through charitable trust or society can become a part of this public-private partnership model. Next. Possibility for foreign collaboration, though 100% of FDI should be allowed, but with the regulation of the government, and then a globally compatible academic credit system. A lesson could be taken from the best rated university and make provision for the funding of the research cells of the university and colleges, as been recommended by the Kothari Commission that 6% of the GDP should be incurred on the higher education, but right now in India it's just around 3.4%, and they have specifically recommended that we need an increase of around 1.5% in higher education. So next is regular industry and academia interaction and collaboration could help in bringing the gap between this demand and supply gap, as India is going to be one of the youngest country, and the expectation shows that by 2025 around 60% of the population will be in the age group of 18 to 23. Thank you.
Next one is Shubham Joshi.
Quality education still a distinct dream for India. I'll just conclude what I've done. I've just done a research on 4 levels. That is, what are the issues at the government level, what are the issues at the, you can say, faculty, education institution and society level. The issues which we are facing firstly on the government front, that is low and equitable excess dearth of quality faculty which they are actually looking forward for the education institution, inadequate infrastructure and low quality research. That has to be addressed. Second is the financial issue, that is the spending of higher education is different for different states. So that is the disparity which is being over there. Mismanagement of the public expenditure and its weak linkages with outcome. That is also the big issue at the government end. Second is education institution, as Professor V.K. Kshatriya said that it is all about, they made a proper picture of just, it is a commodity, education is not education, now it's actually for the selling. So that has to be changed out there, and the difference in perception also exists. What administration think, what government think, what faculty think, there is a big gap in between them, there is no link in between them. In case of faculty does not have autonomy. They want to experiment, they want to innovate, but where is the autonomy? They are just only concerned about what salary they are getting, that's it. They are coming, teaching, that's it. What extra they are doing. So there is again a gap over there. And in the society, if you talk about, society is considered about marks, because our whole pattern is totally dependent upon what? We have the exact grades, we have degrees, that's it, that's what our parents and everybody is concerned. So that thinking needs to be changed. The challenges which everybody is facing is basically poor infrastructure, inadequate faculty, unqualified or untrained faculty, inappropriate or overload in curriculum. Obviously our syllabus, they need a new change, I would say. Lack of financial resources. Finances was not the problem. Basically, the misuse of the finances, that was the biggest problem which we are facing. Then there is ineffective monitoring, feedback. Where is the feedback? Feedback is obviously missing. Social differences between classes. In education, we have reservation, lot of things. The government is doing its part, but people are misusing. Again, poor government funding somewhere. Some in rural India, when we talk about higher education, what we talk. Okay, now we can, the solution are simple. The infrastructure development, provision of adequate trained and qualified faculty, eliminate ethnic differences, promote use of internet and communication. We are in IT generation, and what we are doing. Enable better funding of our institution, improve financial schemes, remove overlapping of authority, make curriculum industry oriented. That's where we need people who can be properly employable, right? And governments must encourage public-private partnership in higher education. Thank you.
Thank you, Vandana.
The topic that I want to handle today is industry engagement in applied academic research. There is a paradox in the topic. I'm talking about applied academic research, which means it is derived from the industry, yet there is no industry engagement. Now when I came here, I deliberately said I was going to talk about it. But sir, with your kind permission, Chairman sir, with your permission, I feel that the intellectual quotient of this hall is too high. So instead of giving my suggestions, I would rather give the problem, with your permission.
It is better to come with a solution than to put to problem.
So if you agree with the problem, because the problem is very grave and it is very important that somebody exactly verbalizes how we choose the topics of applied.
Please come out with a solution, automatically problem will be.
Okay, let her do it.
Time is that. Yes, please, go ahead.
And come to the third
Can you verbalize
slide.
it?
Third slide, just one slide before that. I would want to read out what Kiran Majumdar-Shaw, the major industrialist, said. She said, academic scholars rarely collaborate with practitioners for developing research agenda. Even doctoral research programs seldom insist on direct contact of research scholars with the organizations, which means where is the dearth of funds? Okay, I come now to the statement of the problem.
Last year we invited her as chief guest and she refused to come.
And I tell you, don't believe all these people tell you.
Sir.
Yes. What are they doing? What is their investment in R&D?
Okay.
Private investment, you know.
They are the student, no? Their mentality is such. So they will be aggrieved, no doubt about it.
Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Let's have your problem.
That is there. Please stick to time and complete
Okay,
it.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay, I'll conclude. Come to the suggestions. Okay, so one of my major suggestions here was that as part of the coursework of PhD, we have to come up with some internship or industry engagement programs, because I feel the coursework, although university based, is very theoretical in nature. Next slide please. We have to incentivize industry players for provision of funding. So why would Kiran Majumdar-Shaw come to your university if she does not see her benefit? If the university, no, if the university,
ये जो छोटिया ने कहा तो
no. Sir, if the research scholars are provided, they are doing good work, the industry would automatically come and engage. But then there has to be a beginning. The applied research that is being done now, very good. I don't want to condemn anyone, but is it of that stature that the industry should automatically get engaged with it? I think, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
Let me share with you, 50 years back in Delhi,
It is like anything else. So they cannot, they are not interested to come. Anyway, next speaker is Garima Srivastav. And irrelevance and purpose of lessonness. थोड़ा new topic लगता है, देखिए क्या है, what you want to speak. Yes, you know the real.
I just want to talk about the courses structure and the time spent by the students with the curriculum and their, the basics of education, which probably we are getting forgotten. Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan believed that the importance of education is not only in knowledge and skill, but it is to help us to live with others. Dr. Radhakrishnan opined that only the right kind of education could solve many problems of the society and the country. He wanted that education which will help us to see the other world, the invisible, the intangible world beyond space and time. Education has to give us a second birth to help us realize what have already in us. The meaning of education is to emancipate the individual, and we need the education of the wholesome, mental, physical, intellectual and spiritual. Education should develop in the minds of the students a love of sustained thinking, adherence of truth and the power of resistance to popular sentiments and mob passion. When the statements of Radhakrishnan are viewed in the light of present higher education scenario, the condition is quite discouraging. One of the problems in Indian higher education system are India's obsession with the service industry. The people we are producing are full of information. They are just bomb of information, and they are not getting converted. The information is not getting converted into knowledge and wisdom. So I'm not going into the detail of this problem, probably. So it will. So the another problem is lack of relevant opportunities and project-based learning. To put things into perspective, engineering graduates have to study about 40 subjects, that is close to 250,000 pages worth of information, spend an average of 6,000 hours attending classes, out of which only 500 hours are spent interacting in labs. Across 4 years, have to write 120 internal assessment papers and 50 main exams. Undertake a couple of projects which was probably stolen from their seniors, and let us not even get into amount of time and resources spent on traveling and studying. And then after all the efforts, most of them get jobs in IT service industry, which has absolutely nothing to do with what they learned. Only 50% are lucky enough to get into relevant industries.
Okay. Next is
Thank you.
Shweta Kastia.